It's Coffee Talk.
There's that little button right below beautiful Miranda. So all you got to do is subscribe, hit that bell to remind yourself when we are on to entertain you. Corey, Miranda, welcome. Good morning. We have an incredible show. You guys remember Jonestown? It was big. It was a big story.
In our lexicon, don't drink the Kool-Aid. We'll have that for another 50 years because of this. People will be saying that without even knowing why they're saying it.
This is a special show. I want everybody to welcome right now on the screen Yulanda Williams. Yolanda, welcome to Coffee Talk ADIKA. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. To this date, I suspect that there may have even been something being placed in the food. I'm just not certain.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get out of there?
Well, this is an interesting one. When he was telling us when I was in Georgetown at the home there, that he had come back from Jonestown because he decided after we had met with him numerous times and having a discussion as to whether or not he should come back to the United States to fight and get these charges dropped on him. Of course, one of the charges being that he had kidnapped John Victor Stone, amongst other things. I kept urging him and encouraging him to come back to the United States and address his accusers. He didn't know it. And this is how I realized he wasn't a prophet. The entire time I was there, whenever I was in Georgetown, I was making phone calls back to the United States by finding Guyanese citizens that would trade US dollars to let me use their phone for collect calls. And so that went on for quite an extensive period of time. So I was letting my family members know what was going on. And then also, I had been able to smuggle some letters directly to the post office to my family because I would walk and be out for days, supposedly procuring items for them for that particular complex. And in my travels, I would find time and make time to make sure I took care of that type of business. So ultimately, when he stated he was going to come back to the United States, his son Jimmy, Timmy, and Stephen were going to be going with him, and of course, his mistresses. So what I did was I had wrote a letter to my mother. I told her specifically where we were, and I told her everything that was going on. And I knew that this was a very dangerous undertaking, but this was my last potential hope of being able to get out of there. So I looked at his sons, and amongst the three, I tried to figure out which one would be the one that I could trust. And so I looked at Jimmy and I pulled him to the side and I said, Jimmy, do you really love me as your sister? And he said, yes, yes. I said, I know you and my dad were really, really tight. He said, yeah, 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 we are. I love your daddy. I said, look, I haven't seen my mother in a long time, and you know how close we are. And he said, yes. I said, I have a letter, and it's a personal letter that I want to give to her. And I said, since I can't go with you to tell her how much I love her and miss her, would you do me a favor and give this letter to her? Don't give it to anybody else. Please, Jimmy, if you love me, give it directly to my mother. Will you do that for me? And he said, yes. I said, you promise me? I said, don't let anybody read my personal information that I want to share with my mother. because this is something that's really private and I'm trusting you to handle it. So, through the course of our conversation, and realized that at that time, Jimmy probably was no more than 14 or 15 years of age, um, he agreed to do it. So, they left for the airport in Guyana and they got to Florida. And this is where my mother told me what happened. She said when they got to the airport, my dad and my mom were there waiting for them. And Jimmy said to my mother, "Oh, I have something for you." And he got ready to hand it to her. And she grabbed it really quick and she put it in her bra. And then his dad, Jim Jones, looked at him and said, "Well, did you read that letter? Did somebody review that?" And then he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I read it. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay." And then my mother said, she looked at him like, "I know you're not gonna come here in my bra and get this letter out my bra, but if you do, it's gonna be a big fight up here in the airport." So he let it go, but my mother said she could tell that Jim Jones was really irritated with Jimmy because he had no way of knowing what was in that letter. Now, had he gotten that letter from Jimmy before it would reach my mother's hands, I knew I would have been killed. So over a week and a half had passed, and I hadn't seen my mother or anything. But in this letter, I told her to come get me and my daughter and my husband. Bring as much as cash as you can in US dollars. We don't have our passports anymore. Tell the family in the United States that they got to have the media on this quickly. So I gave her a lot of things to take care of, which she did take care of everything to all of my specifications. However, it had taken her a while to get to Guyana. So I began to wonder whether or not they had read the letter.
Mm-hmm.
I still hadn't seen Jim yet.
Yeah.
So I was scared. I said, "Oh my God, they're just setting me up. They're waiting to take me somewhere. They're going to kill me." And so one day I was sitting on the veranda at the house in Lamaha Gardens, and a taxi cab came up. It was a little Guyanese man, and he said, "Hey, are you a bunch of Americans living here?" And I said, "Why? Who wants to know?" Because I was getting really tired of being there. And he said, "There's a lady in here. She said she's looking for somebody. She's looking for her daughter." It still didn't dawn on me that could possibly be talking about my mom. But when she got out, I realized it was her. And I tell you, I broke from out of the house. I don't even remember my feet even touching the stairs, and it was two actual levels of stairs. But I ran into her arms, and immediately when I ran into her arms, I told her, "Do not give them your passport. Do not give them any cash money you have. They're going to demand your passport. Refuse to give it to them. Don't give it to them. And if they insist, then tell them, no, you're not giving it to them, and you're going to take all of us with you, and we're going to go and get away from them." So, of course, they did try to manipulate her and tell her that, oh, they just wanted to hold on to her passport for her so it'd be safe and secure. She said, "No, I can handle my passport myself. The government says I'm not to give it to anyone, and that includes you." So, my mother realized what was going on there as well. And so we made a plan that when Jim Jones had come back to Guyana, we were going to tell him that we no longer wanted to be there. So he didn't come back in Guyana like he was supposed to. He stayed in Jonestown, but over the PA system, the I shouldn't say PA system, over the CB radio, we let it be known that we no longer wanted to be in Guyana. We wanted to go back to the United States. And at that point, we had to negotiate as to what were the positive things that could occur if he let us come back to the United States. And then we had to make certain agreements that we would continue to go to church in San Francisco. We wouldn't say anything negative about the agricultural quote unquote program. That's my mother's business membership card from the People's Temple. And then we had to agree that we would encourage others to go to Jonestown. And we had to also agree that whatever he needed us to do, we would take care of it expeditiously and constantly tell people how wonderful Jonestown really was.
Now,
And we did it
mhm.
because we wanted out, and we also knew that we had over the years signed documents where we admitted to crimes, of course, that we had never committed. But
Oh
this was
wow.
all part of his plan, and every member that was in People's Temple, no,
Hmm.
if you could write, you were going to write something incriminating about yourself and then also sign blank sheets of paper at the bottom, which would allow them to type in or write
Wow.
whatever they wanted at the top.
So that
Wow.
So,
they let you go. I mean, eventually they just had enough of your rattling the cage, and they let you go.
right. And that you just saw that that
The
postcard.
postcard?
The
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
postcard there, that postcard I sent to my brother who lived next door to my parents' home. My parents' home was being occupied by People's Temple members. Instead of my brother ever getting this letter, this postcard, they intercepted the postcard. And as you can see, that's from June 5th, 1977. My brother didn't see this until my mother died um, in September. We were going through some things, and we found numerous correspondence and communications, and all of which had never gotten to my brother because they were not only intercepting mail going to my parents' house, but because they knew he lived next door to my parents, they were intercepting his mail as well.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
I,
that's it.
I
I'm quitting QAnon.
no,
No more
no,
QAnon for me.
yeah. I mean, Yolanda and
Yes,
Yolanda, it's so scary because you're over there right now, and I'm trying to go back a little bit. What's going
yes.
on? You're just you. Even though you have a 1 year old, how old your daughter was at the
She was
time?
one. She had
She
just
that
made one.
and that's your
That's
Oh,
daughter.
that
her. And you can
baby.
see that she is looking like, why am I here? What is
Mhm.
going on? And you can kind of just see I mean, that picture I've kept with me and I keep it on my phone because it's just a picture that reminds me of how horrific of a situation I had put my child in.
Wow. I mean, you want to get off. You have a letter written out there. You don't know what's going on, and when we're all alone, our mind is the worst thing in the world to be alone. Like, oh my god,
You
and
telling me, oh,
right? I mean,
oh yeah.
the the time it must have seemed forever each night,
It
each.
felt like an eternity. If somebody asked me how long I had been in Guyana, I would have told them a year. 3 months seemed like it was a year. The days just seemed to drag on and on and on, and constantly wondering if someone's going to tell something on you because people would make up things and tell things on others for a candy bar because you didn't have any candy bars.
Wow.
If he offered you a banana, you would tell something on somebody just to get that banana. That's how crazy things had gotten there.
What was the punishments people were getting?
Oh,
What were they
the
doing?
punishments were severe. You would get spanked until you were black and blue. You'd get boxed until you passed out. Or you like the one thing that I saw the first time I came to Jonestown, and that's when I said, "Ooh, no, we got to hurry, get up out of here. We got to get back to Georgetown because at least I know there's an airport there." But was seeing Tommy Bowe, a teenager, put into a 6 foot ditch that they dug up. They put him down there in that blistering heat in South American jungle. And the reason he was down there in that 6 foot ditch was because he tried to run away and he was running in the jungle and he got caught. And this was not his first time. And we were told to stay away from where he was being punished, and do not attempt to talk to him, or we would be punished.
Wow. Wow. Horrifying.
A little kid used to urinate in the bed, and he thought it was a good idea to shock the kid. So they put a contraption together. So whenever the kid peed on himself, he would get shocked, shock therapy.
Wow. Wow.
What a horrible
And
human being.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely deplorable.
How many
Now,
other people survived at the time, and how many of those people are still alive?
I'd say right now it's probably less than 40 people
Now
that managed to survive.
you negotiated your way back into the US after your mom came to get you. When
That's
did
right.
you feel completely free, or did you? I mean, was it after everybody got
I
murdered?
I never felt free, and even after they were uh, murdered, which I call was racial genocide.
mhm.
I did not feel that I was really, really free from them until at least 20 years had passed,
Wow.
because there were still so many who were still back here from there that were still believing in him and still want to just only talk about all the good times. I said, it's time to forget about the good times. You got to remember what he did in his final days, his last days. That's the that's what should be the final everlasting impression, because anything he did that was good long ago has been overshadowed by the fact that 900 plus people lives were taken from them.
It was a
Yolanda, what did you
massacre.
think?
A massacre.
What did you
Yes.
think when you saw that footage, the news footage of
I
the
was,
camp
you
after
know
the
what?
yeah?
I was going to ask you, Yolanda, do you remember? Corey, I'm glad you did that. Not to mean to cut you off. When that massacre, when it hit the news, because I was a little boy when it hit the news about 10, 11. Do you remember
Mhm.
where you were and what you were doing?
Absolutely.
Tell us
Absolutely.
that.
I can tell you, just like I'm there now. I was in my bedroom. My parents were in their bedroom. And I was talking on the radio program to an announcer, and we were discussing People's Temple. The only reason I got on the phone is because I heard so many U.S. citizens coming on the phone saying that they were crazy. They got what they deserved. Who cares? Let them stay over there. They want to be with them. Let them. Who cares if they want to come back? We shouldn't take them back. So I got on the air, and I didn't tell what my name was, but I said, I have been there. You don't know what you're talking about. These people are being held against their will. And I said, I admire Congressman Ryan for going over there, but I warned him not to go over there unless he was going to have armed guards with him. And I said, unfortunately, he did not believe what I said. And he goes, well, what do you mean? All we told you was that the lights have gone off in Jonestown, and they've heard a few gunshots. I said, they're about to do white night. And he said, what? I said, white night, they're going to all kill themselves. And they're probably going to kill the congressman and whoever else is there. And then he said, well, how do you know this? And I said, because we had practice drills, which was your test of loyalty to show you were a true comrade. I said, some of these people may have willingly took whatever it was or did whatever was requested of them because they thought it wasn't real. They may have even thought that the shooting of these folks on the airstrip was just a pretend thing. I said, because he played these kind of tricks with us. He played mind games with us. I said, but ultimately, I know after the people whom I know saw folks weren't really getting up and they were really dead, I said, I know they started to back away and did not want to be part of that. And so then suddenly I kind of got scared because I said, oh, they got the basketball team. That's the hit team. And then I clicked off the phone. Click, and my parents were yelling at me saying, get off that phone. Are you crazy? You're going to get us in trouble. We turned off all the lights. I slept underneath my bed the rest of the night. And my parents kept their room dark. There was no lights or anything on in our house because we still knew that Chris Lewis had told us that he was supposed to put the hit on us, but he couldn't do it because he was a very, very good friend of my sisters and my brother-in-law. They had known each other before People's Temple ever came into existence in the Bay Area. So he wouldn't do it. But we knew that there potentially would be someone else that would do it. And Jim Jones always told us if we talked, that we would suffer the consequences. And we knew what that meant. That meant we would be killed, or they would make it look like we committed suicide, when in fact it was really a hit that he had ordered.
Just to provide a little context to people who don't know the case, Congressman Leo Ryan was shot and killed along with four other people when they were returning from an investigation that Congressman Ryan did of the camp. Do you have any idea what he found? Did people tell you what his report was going to be if he had made it back to the U.S.?
Yes, if he would have made it back to the United States, his report would have been that there was evidence, and he profoundly believed that many of the people that were in Jonestown were there not necessarily willingly, and that there was some suspicion that they may have been under some type of undue pressure, and possibly even being drugged into doing things, because their engagements and interactions with him, other cameramen, and other staff people that he had was not a normal engagement. Because, as you recall, there was the late Vern Gosney, excuse me, passed a note to one of the news reporters as he was walking by. He had folded it up, and the news reporter didn't realize what was going on. He goes, "Hey, you dropped this." And he goes, "No, I didn't drop that. That wasn't me. I don't know what you dropped that." Well, Vern got questioned about that during the night. They didn't know that. But the newspaper reporter kept that note, and that note said, "I want to get out of here. They're making me stay here." And it was signed by Vern. So that's how Vern Gusney was able to get out of there, was that note. But once Jim Jones realized that one person that passed a note, his assumption was there were more that would pass the note or did pass notes. So they became extremely paranoid. So the following day was when one of the temple members pulled out a knife and used it against the congressman, but they didn't severely injure him. And then it was at that point that the congressman and staff members decided that perhaps it was time to leave, and they would leave, and then they would have another journey back there again at a later time. And then if there were more people that wanted to go, they would let them go at that time.
Can we talk a little bit about the massacre, and do you
Yes.
know, were there eyewitnesses that survived of that, and were they given the Kool-Aid to drink? Did they not know? Maybe some of them didn't like Kool-Aid. I don't know. Were they held at gunpoint to drink it? What happened?
They were held at gunpoint. There were guards all around, and they made sure that everyone had come to the pavilion, and they were armed with the guns to ensure that everyone either took it voluntarily, or you were forced to, or it was injected in you with the syringe needle. Also, the ones who happened to survive, a few of them hid, and it was never discovered that they had not entered into the main pavilion, because it's kind of hard to manage 900 people, if you really think about it. And had they really thought about it, 900 people, they may have lost like 70 or 80, but they could have taken it over again. But, again, we don't know what their state of mind was. And of course, he had put fear in them after the congressman was shot on the airstrip, that they all were going to be charged with murder. We have nothing to live for. We need to die. We need to die with dignity. Let's die together. Let's show these people in the United States that we were committed to our cause of social justice. That's the kind of rhetoric and garbage and propaganda he was promoting. And the thing is that unfortunately, some of the people who actually were there as this was going on and witnessed it, their stories don't make sense. One guy is homeless and just like a Looney Tune. So
Hmm.
I think it was just too much for the human brain, the human mind to process. And again, this is something that was done deliberately by him because he said he was always going to be a very complicated individual and he would make sure that it would take a multitude of people to put together the total story about People's Temple, but that he would go down as a martyr. He would go down in history. And that was his desires. And he made that known to us when we were in Guyana, that that's really what he wanted, what he desired.
You don't really hear about mass cyanide poisonings. He
No.
was really the first one to do it since Hitler.
Hmm.
Yeah. When you think about it,
Hmm.
yeah. I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that. But,
And the thing is the person who helped to mix the concoction, unfortunately, was a person who went to med school here in the United States, Larry Shack, and former to him going to med school, or prior to him going to med school, I should say, he was a drug. He was addicted to drugs,
hmm.
but then he became part of the drug rehab program, and then they put him in college. He was very successful in college, and then he went on to med school. But he's the one that put everything together for this concoction. But of course, they didn't have to order a lot of drugs from the United States because the other thing I forgot to tell you is if you came to Jonestown or you as soon as you got to Guyana, you were told, well, you're in the promised land now. You're here with Father. You're healed of every medical condition those doctors told you about because they didn't know what they were talking about anyway. Where's your medicine? And you say, oh, I've got it right here. And they'd say, oh, you don't need that medicine anymore because you're healed. We're going to take it and we'll just store it away for you. If you need it at a later date, you'll be able to get it. But that's not really what was happening with it. If it was something that was a sleeping pill, it was going to Jim Jones' um, medicine cabinet, which was a large, large medicine cabinet.
Wow.
And if it was something that was an upper, like Ellavilles or something like that, that was going in Jim Jones' arsenal. So that's what was going on. So he was self medicating and he was not really under a valid medical doctor's attention. So he was highly addicted. And I
Hmm.
realized he was addicted once I got over there in Guyana and I was in closer proximity to him and on a more frequent basis because he would fall asleep, he would nod out, and everything else. So that's when I said, this is the appropriate time to begin to plan because we're going to get the heck up out of here.
Wow. He created such an illusion when you look at him. Okay. And I talked and Yolanda, we spoke
Hmm.
very briefly. The glasses, the hair,
Yes.
the
Yes.
persona of Elvis, the
That's
rock
Elvis.
star.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
know, and
absolutely. Everything had to be in impeccable. And you see those glasses, you see
hmm.
his eyes, how they glare through it.
Hmm.
There would be times when those pupils would be so dilated. The glasses were used to hide that and mask that. However, my sister, who was a drug addict, called him out in one of his church services and told him, take your glasses off because you ain't nothing but a drug addict. I know what you do. You
Wow.
do heroin and everything. Now, I found out later the reason my sister knew he was doing all those drugs is because his right hand man, Christopher Lewis, was a heroin addict.
Hmm.
And he had Christopher Lewis buying heroin and whatever other kind of drugs he could find on the streets for him. But before Chris Lewis would come back, Chris Lewis would go and get high with my sister and my brother in law. And then he'd bring them back, not the correct amount. But Jim was so stupid, he didn't know
Hmm.
because, he wasn't going to go out there and go try and get it himself anyway. So
Yeah.
at times when he would be yelling and screaming about where's Chris Lewis and stuff, we would think like, oh God, he really needs Chris Lewis to help him do something. Somebody needs to find Chris Lewis. It wasn't for that. It was because he was wondering where his drugs were. Now that's
Wow.
him in the metaphysical realms, as he would call it. That's what he would look like when he's supposedly getting ready to heal someone. Notice that he has the church robe on. That's when he was still in Redwood Valley, and in the earlier years, I would say in the early 70s, when he was still professing himself to be a minister of the cloth. And notice how dark, dark, dark those shades
The
are.
shades are dark. Yes, very
Yeah,
dark.
they're
Yeah.
very, very dark. Yeah, and
In-
they
yeah.
started to get darker as time went on. And I realized now that's why that was going on. And he would tell you, close your eyes when he would go into his metaphysical realm.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre, and it's so, how he just lured. He took people who were searching for something good, people that needed to be found. He just took advantage of everybody. This man, this
And
sick
not
man.
everybody was poor or homeless or anything like that. He had professors, he had lawyers, he had people who were major business owners. I mean, the sky was the limit for him. And although he was established here in the West Coast, he had followers all over the United States. I mean, I never forget, we went to Philadelphia. He took over 30 people from Father Divine's movement into People's Temple because he felt like they could teach us how we should be loyal to him. And then that's how we ultimately started being made or told that we were going to call him Father and his wife Marcelin was going to be called Mother. Because he said if Father Divine could be called Father Divine and Mother Divine could be called Mother Divine, and they didn't do nearly as much as what he did for all of us, we shouldn't have any problem calling him Father and his wife Mother. So he left from being called plain old Jim to then being called Father.
It's coffee talk with the Tika. Nothing rhymes with that but chicken tikka. We name drop here. With Stephen and all his friends.
And remember, everybody, click up there, click down there, click over there, click over here, and share it. And give somebody a hug today. We love you. Mwah. Big mazel day.